The content in this magazine could contain references of topics and difficult subject matter that may be triggering. Please honor yourself, inner knowing, and proceed with whatever help or guidance you feel is intuitively aligned. Welcome to Sovereign Magazine Podcast. I'm Nicole George, CEO and founder of Sovereign. I'm so happy you are here. We are the magazine podcast and community guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves. From heart-led conversations to magical meditations, our inspiring guests will show you how they can help you step into your sovereign self. Are you ready to listen to your inner voice and step into your power? Then keep listening to hear all of the intuitive messages meant for you today. Hello. Today I have the privilege of connecting with Abby Teixeira, one of our amazing contributors. She is a generational cycle breaker, woman-centered coach, and internationally recognized speaker and author. As a Latina Canadian mother of 4 and complex post-traumatic syndrome advocate, she helps cycle breaker women heal their inner child, reclaim their narrative, and lead with truth and purpose. She is very well known for her work in ancestral healing, human design, and decolonized leadership. Welcome, Abby.
I'm so excited to be here. Hello,
Oh,
hello.
it's going to be such a good conversation, so definitely stick around. Today, we are exploring the need for change, which is the theme for our December full moon issue. And in your article, The Day I Stopped Apologizing, A Cycle Breaker's Call to Change, you shared not only your powerful but really vulnerable story about your healing journey from childhood trauma and addiction to recovery, motherhood, and your deeply courageous decision to go no contact with your father. So, for those who haven't read your article, first of all, I want to say, please go read it. It changed my life. But second of all, why don't you recap for them and give them some context for why you wrote this article and what it's about?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And it's probably you're right, one of the most real, most authentic, most vulnerable pieces that I've written to date. And I felt really called to speak on this because this is an article that's coming from a very real, raw place of years I spent silencing myself to keep peace in the family. The courage that it finally took for me to finally break that silence. I talk about how I am a cycle breaker, and that means breaking cycles of all sorts that have been passed down to me. And one of them is the cycle of silence. And so this was my perfect opportunity to do that. And I just wanted to give voice and name around the pain around estrangement, which is one of the most misunderstood, lonely kind of experiences that as trauma survivors, as cycle breakers, we can work through. And it's just about the power of finally saying no more. And my biggest mission of this is that anybody that reads it, that can relate to it, can finally breathe a little bit and know that they're not alone, that this is something that happens quite often, and there's just a lot of complexity around it, and I'll dive into that throughout our conversation, because nobody wakes up one day in the morning and they just think to themselves, I'm not going to speak to my parent or my brother or my sister, a loved one. Nobody just wakes up and makes that decision. It's a process, and it is one that is often navigated in silence, in shame, in secrecy, and with so much fear of judgment, misunderstanding, and all of that kind of stuff. And so I want to be able to be the one to kind of break that silence, and yeah, just give people hope, if anything, that this is something that choosing yourself is not wrong, and choosing to break the cycle of silence is courageous, and that so many others, the ripple effects that that causes, is incredible. And so that's really where my inspiration and motivation to write this piece really came from.
I've got full body chills all the way up to my head because you and I have chatted. We have very similar stories, and I wholeheartedly believe in this whole silencing is not peace, because my father said, we didn't know at the time, 2 weeks before he passed away, "Please just keep the peace." It wasn't with him, it was with my stepmother, and who I don't even call a mother anymore. I just, call her by her name because that's the role that I believe she fits now. She was a mother at one point, but she no longer fits that role for me. And so, at what point did you realize that your silence was costing you more than speaking ever could?
Hmm. Such a great question. I think for me, it was really the heavy weight that I felt I was carrying for so many years. The only person that really had a front row seat to really seeing the whole process from before I entered into recovery to the early, really hard years of full on recovery, which was like a full time job for me, was my partner, my husband. And he saw everything. And he saw the amount of years and just effort that I put into trying to salvage a relationship, trying to like hope it, I more so expected it. I expected it that one day this person would finally take responsibility. I wasn't even looking for an apology, anything like that. I just wanted the acknowledgement and the validation that there was harm that was done, significant harm on his end, and that just never came. And instead the pain and the struggle and the hurt continued. And what really drew a line for me in the sand was that I was bringing that energy into my home, because now obviously, like you mentioned, I'm a mother of four. I have four young children who are full of energy, full of curiosity and wonder, and I'm actively breaking cycles every single day in my work that I do at home with them, with parenting, with mothering. And this weight that I was carrying, this weight of shame and pain and grief and all of that stuff that came into the silence of, trying to figure things out, trying to people please, trying to walk on eggshells, trying not to ruffle any feathers too much, all of that kind of stuff. It was starting to create an impact, a negative impact in my home. And it was a wake up call for me because I was true. It was true, like I was starting to, yeah, just really rapidly decline, like even in my mental health and, the depression, the anxiety, all of that kind of stuff. It was just taking such a significant part in my life in a negative way. So it's like, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this? What are the options? What are the choices? All of that kind of stuff. And so that was really the turning point for me, where I really had to look at self protection, and then also knowing how that was going to affect this decision was going to affect my immediate family, and as well as my children and my husband and my own home that I'm now creating.
Yeah, I can identify with this so much because it was my daughter who was the catalyst.
Mm,
She really opened my eyes to the constant gaslighting. Boundary after boundary after boundary was set and broken, set and broken, set and broken. And it, like you said, it takes time. It's not like we wake up one day and are like, this is it. But once I had that 6 months of separation, I started to be able to hear myself again. And so I really want to tap into this. You are in your no more apologies era. And so, what began to start to shift in your body, in your nervous system, and in your relationships when you stopped apologizing for who you are?
so first, like really really embodying that choosing yourself even when it's painful is so worth it. It's really the truth, our truth, my truth, the ripple effects that I can't always see, and that it's not selfish to stop apologizing. For so long I thought, like, is it just me? Am I being too harsh? All of the conditioning that you hear from people, oh, but he's your dad, but it's family, family over everything. All of those kind of slogans that so many people are so quick to say when they don't know the full context of the journey. I've really, really embodied that it's not anything wrong. It's really a revolution, right? I feel it's very revolutionary to be able to step into your own power, to say no more, and that, whoever is going to be there with you through that time is who are your people, right? And so for me, since writing this piece, which was so therapeutic on so many different levels for me, it really deepened my own liberation journey. So I feel like I'm just much more rooted. And I love that you said that you started to hear yourself. Similarly, I started to finally hear my own voice, right? My own intuition without the cloudiness of all these different things that were said to me from so many different people, and then becoming just more unapologetic about that. It's becoming my leadership, right? That I'm more committed now than ever to really guiding others to rise and to speak and to remember, this part of themselves where, breaking the cycle of silence can be safe, right? It can be powerful. And it's something that will, like I keep saying, ripple effects, because it's just, I've seen it in my own work. I've seen it in my work with clients when they make decisions like this, how it affects their household. And then from there out into the world, right? Because every single one of us in the home, we are a leader whether we like it or not, right? We, as mothers, we lead in our home. We are the nervous system of our home. So, if mom wakes up in a crazy mood, everyone is going to feel that. If mom wakes up in a peaceful mood, everyone's going to feel that, right? We set that tone, and so we lead in our family in that way, and then our children learn that, right? Like my daughter is the oldest, she leads her little brothers, in ways that she's seeing. She's mirroring what me and my husband do and how we interact with each other. The other day they were playing family, and and her older brother was her babe, because she said they were married, because my husband and I call each other babe. So like they're watching these things, and like that I have to remind myself when I'm making these decisions, it's not just for me. It's really what I'm showing them, or what boundaries look like, and that sometimes boundaries can be painful, but they're so necessary. And that just because you are family, and I'm using air quotes, that doesn't give you a free pass to mistreat, abuse, continue with the toxic, dysfunctional behaviors, just because you get that pass because you're family. It's like, I want them to know that they have every right to create boundaries with anyone in their life who is causing them harm. Right. And just really destigmatize that, because I think for so long, and this is something that's been passed down. I know if you understand intergenerational trauma, it's been passed down one um, from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next, because everyone has just said, this is the way it is, right? Like, this is the way it is. No one ever questions it. Like the abuse, the silence, the all of that kind of stuff. And it just gets passed down until somebody courageously says, I don't want to pass this down. And why does it have to be? Why is it just the way it is? I'm not okay with that, questioning that, and how powerful that is to witness, for children to see that. And that's something that I know I never even knew about boundaries until my far adult years. I didn't even know what that was, what a boundary was. So and that's been a journey in itself that I'm still very much learning about, and really trying to embody.
I really want to take these boundaries like one step further, because this is something often not talked about, but has been a pattern in my life. Not only when I was pregnant did I get this, but I got this as being a child of, a parent, is the obligation to take care of the elder as a child. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, we had decided we weren't going to have any other children. And I was told, how selfish of you to make her take care of you by herself. Right. And I was like, who says she has to take care of me? Like, that's not why I'm having a child, is so I have somebody to take care of me when I'm older. That was my thought at the time, before I did the estrangement. Right. But there was that pattern of, you said intergenerational patterns, that we are obligated as children to care for our parents. But guess what? If it's not a match, why? Why are we obligated?
Hmm. Yeah, and again, it's social conditioning, right? And not just social it's within the family. It's an expectation that, it's a law or a rule that was kind of created intergenerationally. I get, when we think about our ancestral ways of living, and when community was everything, your village was everything, everyone, when you became a mother, the whole village banded around you and helped you raise this child. And then when the elders were highly regarded, they were the wisdom keepers, they were the storytellers, they were the medicine people. And when they started aging and needed care, of course all the children would come, because there was that beautiful reciprocal um, way of sharing, responsibility. this would be a whole other podcast, but like, when you think about like colonization, what it did, it really became individual, where they separated, they fractured that, they severed that tie from, each other, from ourselves, from the earth, from the land, and everything became like, one man for himself. And then all the violence and all of the stuff that started to kind of happen, there was a big fracture that happened there. And then we still expected to have these commitments, as when all this stuff was happening, but now the things have everything has changed, right? And so I believe that there are certain traditions that we want to honor when they're beneficial for everyone, and there's certain ways of being and ways of doing that we have every right to question and say, like, does this fit for me now? Like, does this fit for my family? Does this really make sense? Or am I just doing this because it's just the way it's always been done? It's because everyone in my family has always taken care of their elders and their aging parents, regardless of how they were treated. So I've worked as a nurse for 18 years now, and in geriatrics. And so I've worked with the elderly, and I have seen everything. I've seen so much, and the dynamics that happen when, the parent becomes, where they can't take care of themselves anymore. And you can see very clearly, the families that come where there's like deep love, deep care, their parent is in a home for whatever reason, so many different circumstances and reasons, but the family's still very much active, very much, there for them. And then there's other families where you start through family conferences and things like that, you start hearing that this person was actually very toxic, very abusive, and there's like a burden of responsibility that goes into now caring for this person when they never cared for them when they were children, kind of thing, right? And you're starting to see that, and I see the immense guilt and shame that some of these families carry. And some of these families go even a step further, where they feel so much guilt and shame for not wanting to care for their aging parent who has been abusive all their lives, that they start to take it out on other people, right? Whether it's the staff or the doctor, or they just start to project these things onto other people. And so it's been so interesting to observe that. I'm all for questioning anything, anything that doesn't feel aligned anymore, that's becoming like a burden, or like you dread it, like you're dreading this, like it's just like, why am I doing this? Let's get real here. Let's be honest, and like let's have a real conversation. Is this because people pleasing, because you don't want to seem like this and that, you don't want other people thinking this and that? So many of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, if we stopped and we thought to ourselves, why do I do this? It's very interesting what comes up, and I'm very much of the belief that since entering into my healing and recovery journey, I question everything. I am so curious. I want to understand, especially when it comes to beliefs and traditions and things like that. Like, I really want to understand, like, is this something that really resonates with me and my family and what I'm trying to create? Or is this just something that I'm doing because this is the way it's always done?
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is people are afraid, right? You talk so vulnerably, and I think this is another piece that people don't talk about is when you finally said, "I'm gonna go no contact." The comments that you got, my mouth was on the floor. So why don't you just share some of them? See, for me, I haven't been able to hear the comments because I live in a different part of the state, right? But none of that side of the family talks to me. So it's very obvious that that's what's going on. But I haven't. Not that I would want to hear what they have to say because I really don't care if it's not nice. But you did have to endure the comments. And so maybe why don't we I don't want to use the word normalize, but um, give some truth, if we will, to the reality of what actually happens when you say, "I'm not going to talk to mom anymore. I'm not going to talk to dad anymore, or I'm not going to talk to my brother," whoever it is.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, again, and this is something that I continuously still hear, because I create a lot of content, and I've started to create a lot more content on estrangement and reels and things like that. And there's always someone, that will come into the comments and be like, oh, like, this is, you're breaking apart families with this messaging, and blaming the survivor for having boundaries. You're breaking apart the family is one, but he's your dad, but he's your family. all these things that people want to spew at you when they don't understand the full context of it. And even more, if you've never been personally touched by an experience like this, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense, and you're going to be judgmental, because you're going to think to yourself, like, I can't even imagine ever doing that to my parent. But if you sit and you listen, and in this case, if you read the article, you will see I go through the timeline of, kind of that experience, and the decision, and the conversations that happened afterwards, the backlash, as I continued to like speak out on this. And the backlash really was, you're being too harsh. It's not fair for you to talk about dad in this way. He can't defend himself. And then the worst one, the one that hurt the most, was, you're just doing this for attention,
Mhm. That was the one
right?
I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I was like, "How dare you? How you
Yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
know, like, what
Yeah.
we've gone through," and the mind hockey, if you will, of how long we would spend sleepless nights just and the internalization of the hurtful things that they do and say to us, but yet we are the ones that are horrible.
Painful. It's painful, but you know what? And I share about this in that article. I was very surprised with myself that when these things were kind of spewed at me, had it been even a year prior, it would have broke me. It really would have broke me. It would have caused me to maybe retract. It would have caused me to really question myself, but I didn't. And in fact, I thought to myself, like, yes, of course it stung when I read those words, in a text message. It stung, of course, it hurt. But then I thought to myself, this person doesn't know me. Even though they are my sibling, they don't know my heart, because I know this is not true. This is far from the truth, right? And so I was very rooted and grounded in my decision. And that's when I knew that I was coming from a healing place rather than a wounded place. Because oftentimes when we are wounded, we do things. We do things. That's the reason why there is so much chaos in the world, is because there's so many wounded people out there, and living in their shadows and in their wounds and bleeding all over people, and this is why there's just so much chaos. But when we really take a step back and we think, for me, I was like, wow, this is a wound that is starting to scar up for me. And I'm starting to feel stronger through it. And I'm convicted, because I know that this was a carefully thought out, difficult decision that I've made. In no way, shape, or form has it been for attention, to hurt other people, all of those kind of things. Like, I tried everything possible not to come to this decision, and this was the only choice I had for my own well-being, for the family, for my own family that I'm creating. And yeah, and I stood my ground. And since then I've become even more stronger in it. And I'm happy to report that, it's been a while. So it's been a couple of years since, like, the no contact thing with my dad. And I've started to have some really powerful healing conversations with my siblings. It's almost like a miracle, because I'm not stopping, like, talking about this. I've made that very clear. I'm no longer uh, submitting to silence. I am not. It's just a non-negotiable for me anymore. And so I'm open to conversation. I'm open if you want to hear my perspective. And, strangely enough, and thankfully, and not something that I ever expected, things have kind of come full circle, and there have been some really beautiful, healing, powerful conversations that have come through, since me, showing up in this way unapologetically.
Are you looking for a space that actually feels good to be in? Join the Sovereign Community, the soul aligned social media platform made for conscious women like you. No ads, no trolls, no doom scrolling, just real women from around the globe sharing meaningful conversations, support, and a sense of community. It is free to join, free to be you, and full of women walking their sovereign path. Come be part of the movement. Join us today. So, this brings us to steps to our sovereign self, where you're going to take us on a guided meditation to help us all remember the truth of who we are and connect with our inner child and our voice and all of that. So, if you're somebody who's struggling with all of this is going to be perfect for you. Okay, take it away.
Yeah. So I'll just invite you to take a nice, deep, juicy breath. And if it feels safe, gently close your eyes and just let your shoulders soften, your jaw unclench. Let the breath slowly you down. Now bring your attention to the center of your chest. Let's visualize a small flame there. This is your inner fire. This is the part of you that has always known the truth. The part of you that never stopped hoping, even in hard seasons. Now imagine sitting across from your younger self. What age is she? What does she look like? What does she need to hear from you right now? Let her know that she's safe, that you're listening now, that her voice matters. Now see her begin to glow. That same flame in your chest now burns in her too. You're reuniting, reclaiming, remembering. And as you inhale, breathe in the power of your lineage, your ancestors rooting for you. And as you exhale, let go of any story that says that you're too much, not enough, too loud, too quiet, too broken. You are a sovereign being. You are whole, and you are so ready to shine brilliantly and unapologetically. And when you're ready, gently come back into your body. Wiggle your fingers, your toes. Come back into this moment, bringing the truth of who you are with you.
Yes, I always share with our listeners what I experienced. So I experienced myself probably around age 9,
Mm.
and her flame was bigger than mine.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, yes. Yeah, she was shining so brightly, like her innocence was still there. And I love that. So I'm going to connect with her a little bit more later. Well, for anyone who is looking to connect with Abby, she is in our community.sovereign-magazine.com, but all of her details are in the show notes for how to connect with her on social. She's all over socials. She's got amazing reels, so definitely go watch those and all of her details of how to connect with her. Do you have any offerings coming up?
Yeah, right now I still have my 60-minute leadership breakthrough call that I love to guide cycle breaking women, moms, healers, coaches, creatives. I weave in a little bit of a human design mini analysis to really figure out your unique way to lead, what you're meant to do in this world, how you're meant to show up, how others perceive you, all of that kind of stuff. And with that, we also share just a really beautiful conversation to see where you are, what you're stuck with, and potentially how I can come in and help you.
Oh, this is so amazing. All right, everyone, go connect with Abby. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another soul-led entrepreneur here to help you step into your sovereign self. Subscribe to our magazine and podcast and join our global community for all the magic. Details to connect with today's guest or join the movement are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps us reach our goal of guiding 5 million women to self-sovereignty.